This is Lisa from Mobile Tech Review, and today we're going to do a comparison smackdown between two less than 10-inch tablets on Verizon with LTE. We have the Samsung Galaxy Tab 7.7 here on my left, and the Motorola Droid XYBoard 8.2 on my right. Just about the same size, very similar specs, and we're going to see which one's better for you now. So here we have two LTE Android tablets available now on Verizon. This is the Samsung Galaxy Tab 7.7, which means 7.7-inch display. And this is the Motorola XYBoard 8.2, actually Droid XYBoard. If you get the Verizon version, it has Droid in the name. You can also buy it just direct from Motorola with Wi-Fi only, and then it's just the Motorola XYBoard. But we're looking at the two Verizon versions now for you Verizon customers who need data anywhere, fast data at that. They both have LTE 4G plus 3G EVDO Rev A. And the XYBoard has something a little special here. It's actually a world device. It got a little software update over the air. And voila, it can now do GSM too. So for those people who travel overseas to the lands, say, of Europe, Asia, where GSM is pretty popular, that can be useful for you. Samsung Galaxy Tab 7.7 is a straight CDMA device with LTE for use in Verizon in the United States. Both are relatively compact. The XYBoard weighs 2 ounces more than the Tab 7.7. This is 12 ounces, this is about 14 ounces, so pretty close in weight, but the XYBoard is a little bit heavier, and it should be because it also has about half-inch larger display there. Now we're not going to go into every feature in detail for these two devices because you can watch our video reviews of each of these individually, but just to give you a quick recap of the features, both have 1280 by 800 pixels displays, and the Samsung is, well, it's typical Samsung. It's very thin, it's very light, and attractive, and happily they've finally left those kind of cheesy plastics behind, and now we have brushed aluminum back here. Plastic caps on the top and bottom so that it doesn't interfere with antenna reception. But other than that, it's definitely got a nice look to it. So if you're looking for the ultimate pocketable, portable tablet, well, this guy certainly is. Motorola XYBoard is pretty slim too, but not quite as slim. And it's got this kind of rubbery, rugged thing going on here. And in fact, it is water resistant. Motorola's been marketing that fact more heavily now that the Pantech Element has come out. That's your water-resistant tablet in AT&T. So you've got rubber here, you've got metal here, water-resistant nano coating, and Gorilla Glass up front. Samsung doesn't say they use Gorilla Glass on the 7.7, which they do on their other tablets mentioned, so we assume that it actually doesn't, but we don't know for sure. So definitely two different looks here. You've got the kind of rugged design here and more rugged looking, these interesting cut-off corners, and you've got the elegant, slim consumer electronics look kind of in the iPad 2, iPad 3 realm. The Samsung is going to cost you more money on or off contract. The XYBoard is $429 with a 2-year contract for the 16 gig, and the Samsung is $499 with a 2-year contract also for the 16 gig. Now XYBoard's been out for a little bit longer, might have something to do with it, but well, we'll see. Now retail, and we do really recommend that you get these guys without the contract if you can afford it because, well, tablet technology changes so quickly and you're not getting that much of a subsidy. You're never going to get that ETF back, for example, since Verizon has a fairly high ETF for their what they call advanced devices. Motorola is going to cost you $599 without a contract, and the Galaxy Tab 7.7 is a whopping $699. Let's call it what it is. It's really $700 versus $600. Either way, you're talking expensive, and Verizon's LTE tablets tend to be expensive. However, we assume that they're selling enough to please themselves, so I guess the pricing must work. But that's really the thing that holds us back from liking the Tab 7.7 even more is the price. I mean, $700, you're talking more than what you're going to be paying for the new iPad. When it comes to displays, like I said, they both have 1280 by 800 pixel displays, which is very high resolution for a relatively small tablet. That means really good pixels per inch, nice sharp text, all that kind of thing. Different display technologies, both are excellent. The Droid XYBoard 8.2 has an IPS display, and it's quite a bright one too, around 400 nits of brightness, making it very good for outdoor work. It tends to be fairly color accurate, and it will look better with anything warm tone. This Samsung has the Samsung Super AMOLED Plus display, and that means better than life colors. Really, really super saturated colors and nice high contrast, so it has a whole lot of wow factor. I'm not going to say that one is better than the other. It really depends on what you like. Do you want something that is sharp and clear and color accurate, or do you like those kind of really super lively colors? In terms of readability, now we do something like we just take a look at, say, the icon drawer, and you can see the difference there in terms of labeling. Since they're both the same resolution, but the Samsung is a ½ inch smaller, things are a little bit tinier here. Now both of them, they're relatively fairly small already, but it's going to be a little bit smaller here. So if your eyes are not your best feature, keep that in mind. This will be a little bit more difficult on your eyes, a little smaller text, all that kind of thing. In terms of software customization, we have hardly anything done on the Motorola. Really, MotoBlur is just about apps, and they have some stuff to make social networking set up easier, and they do their squared off icons that you can see here. But otherwise, it's pretty much stock Android that you're looking at here. With the Samsung, you get their TouchWiz UI, which I actually happen to like. I wasn't too fond of it for a while on the phones, but they've really cleaned it up, done some nice things. You get some good widgets with that. They leave the icons alone, which I actually prefer, to be honest. And they have like quick settings stuff in your settings menu here to make it easier to manage your wireless radios, all of that stuff. So I give this one a little bit nod for software customization. Now, those of you who prefer a vanilla experience might actually like the XYBoard better, though. Both of these are running Honeycomb, Android OS 3.2. Both of them will eventually get Ice Cream Sandwich. We don't have firm dates on when that's going to happen, though. In terms of speed, well, the Samsung really pulls ahead because it has Samsung's own Exynos CPU, 1.4 gigahertz. It's one of the fastest CPUs that are currently available right now. The only thing that could beat it is the Tegra 3 quad-core CPU. However, the Transformer Prime 10-inch tablet is still the one and only tablet to have that. So if you're looking at dual-core CPUs, the Exynos is lightning fast. Motorola Droid XYBoard goes with the more everyday 1.2 gigahertz dual-core TI OMAP CPU, which is a reference platform for Ice Cream Sandwich. Actually, it's not a bad CPU. It's used in the Galaxy Nexus smartphone. But it's not nearly as fast. In terms of everyday use, I mean, both of them feel fairly responsive, but you'll notice more snappiness from the Samsung. In terms of synthetic benchmarks, Samsung manages 3425 on Quadrant, and the XYBoard manages 2822. So there's a big difference right there. In terms of LinPack, they do about the same, averaging about 55. And SunSpider JavaScript test, the Moto XYBoard actually pulls ahead a little bit further. It scored 1807, where lower numbers are better, versus 2003 on the tab. So Motorola may have done a little bit more optimization for web browsing and JavaScript and all that kind of thing there. When it comes to AnTuTu benchmark, you get 7050 on the Galaxy Tab 7.7 versus 5555 on the Motorola XYBoard. So more pep, more punch, a little bit less lag, certainly on the Samsung tablet. Here's another place where the Samsung Galaxy Tab 7.7 really pulls ahead. This thing is uber skinny, right? But somehow, you know, Samsung, they managed to fit very large batteries in very skinny tablets. This is a 5100 milliamp battery. That's quite a high capacity battery for something this small and light. It's astounding how they did that. And they claim battery life of up to 12.5 hours when LTE is turned on for web browsing and usage involving the internet on and off, that kind of thing, versus only 4.8 hours for the XYBoard. Battery life is not its strong point. Motorola went with a smaller battery. It's a 3960 milliamp battery. Their 10-inch Droid XYBoard has a much larger battery, much longer runtimes that are competitive with other 10-inch tablets. But in this case, Samsung pulls ahead with about 2.5 times the runtime in our tests. Now, Motorola fights back a bit when it comes to LTE performance in terms of download and upload speeds. Motorola is really good at getting that last bit of performance out of wireless radios, and we do get faster download speeds consistently on the XYBoard. We got about, with a weak to middling LTE signal, we got about 7 to 8 megabit per second down on the Galaxy Tab 7.7 and about 2 megabit per second up. And on the XYBoard, we regularly got a 10 megabit per second down and a 2 to 3 for upload speeds. Now, if you get them both in a stronger signal area, really good LTE signal, the XYBoard will still pull in higher numbers. In terms of reception that they're reporting, though, they are quite similar. That said, we noticed that the Galaxy Tab 7.7 was more likely to drop off LTE and onto 3G if the signal is weak, pretty poor, and the XYBoard could really hold on to a weak signal. So if you're in a signal-challenged area, you travel to signal-challenged areas, the XYBoard, it becomes more attractive. Now, taking a look at the cameras on these guys, Samsung loves to go with that 3-2 combo, 2 megapixel on the front, 3 megapixel camera on the rear, and that's what we've got here. Now 3 megapixels is pretty low for modern cameras, but Samsung does a good job with optics, so it actually takes reasonably decent photos. Tends to white out in bright sunlight outdoors. That's been a problem for Samsung cameras for some time, but for 3 megapixels it's not too terrible. Motorola's got a 5 megapixel camera here. They both have LED flashes, by the way, and 5 megapixels does get you some more image data, but you know, it's not exactly the world's best camera either on the XYBoard 8.2, so I wouldn't make my buying decision on that. In terms of the front cameras on these, you've got 2 megapixel, like I said, on the Samsung. You have 1.3 megapixel on the Motorola, and really they're both quite similar in terms of quality. Samsung again tends to white out a little bit. You look pretty pale when you're doing video chat. Motorola is also a little bit towards the, shall we say, high contrast, but a little bit better actually in terms of quality. How about ports and controls? Motorola likes to do weird things with their controls on their tablets. Here's your buttons back here for your power and for your volume. Yes, on the back of the tablet. Now I think they figure when you're holding it in your hands that your fingers will rest naturally here, but these guys don't really have much tactile feel and they're pretty hard to press, so not my favorite feature, the buttons on the XYBoard. Samsung goes with their more normal button configuration. You got teeny little buttons on the side. Right there, and though they're small, they're actually quite easy to operate, and typical of Samsung skinny devices, it's also easy to accidentally press these when you pick it up if you're holding it by its sides like so. If you have big hands like me, you can actually palm this tablet no problem, and then, well, you might press the buttons. But still, these are easier to see when you're actually using the tablet facing you, easier to use. As we look around at ports, who would think that Samsung could actually win the battle here? Here we have our micro SD card slot. That's the SIM card slot right there. So yes, finally Samsung is putting micro SD card slots in. Yay! And Motorola, well, they decided to drop it. So there is no SD card slot on the Motorola. No expandable storage there. Bummer. But where Motorola pulls ahead is right here. You have both micro HDMI and micro USB. And the micro USB supports USB host. So that means if you've got something like this little dongle adapter right here, this is the Motorola camera connection kit they call it, but it's really just a USB host adapter cable and a flash drive. You can plug that right in there and mount the flash drive. So that's pretty versatile, and that you don't have to, you know, go out of your way to find connectors to do that. And obviously the HDMI port, well, you know what that's for. Nice to have that built in. With the Samsung, you have their usual 30-pin proprietary connector here, and of course they sell all sorts of adapters, so you can actually buy a USB host adapter. I've actually never been able to find one in stores though to test it to make sure it actually works. And you can buy adapters for HDMI out, so you're looking at carrying dongles around and buying some extra dongles to do that kind of stuff. In terms of software that's preloaded, besides the Samsung widgets and apps that we like pretty well, you've got the usual selection of Verizon applications there, VZ Navigator, VCast videos, all that kind of thing. Netflix, the inescapable Blockbuster that's usually on Verizon devices. So you're looking at pretty much the same stuff. Just to add to their sameness, both of these have AV remotes with consumer IR blasters, and on the Samsung, your little IR window is right up here. And on the Motorola, the IR window is up here. So you're going to be holding it in portrait mode when you use that AV remote software. But the software differences are noticeable. The Samsung uses Peel, it's a popular AV remote application and TV listing guide, and the Motorola uses Digit. Now Digit's more your traditional TV listing grid you can see here, and it's more focused on just being a TV listing grid and AV remote control device. Whereas Peel is more about content. As you can see right here, you're not really looking at what's on now, you're looking at various categories, and then you can switch through subcategories like sports or movies and that kind of thing. Though sometimes the buckets really don't hold what you think they do. I've looked at sometimes at sports, for example, and seen things I didn't think were all that sporty. But so a different approach. It really depends on what you like best. If you like to just graze on types of content and that kind of thing, versus getting your TV grid and see what is on the TV right now, well, there's a different approach. Both of the applications will walk you through setting up your AV gear. And once you do it with Peel, you have your all on, all off, and it basically only sets up those things that are related to the activity of TV watching, your cable box, your TV, that kind of thing. And then you can switch rooms right there. And with Digit, like I said, it's a little bit more device-centric. So you've got a device selector here, and you can cycle through, and you get remote controls for all sorts of devices there. So again, it's a matter of personal preference. I kind of like this. It's really geared towards controlling my devices and showing me what's on my particular TV grid right now versus something that's kind of presenting this marketed content-centric stuff here. How do these guys look side by side? Well, here you go. Obviously, the XYBoard's a little bit thicker, but not hugely so, really. A little bit bigger footprint because it has that bigger screen. So that's the Motorola Droid XYBoard 8.2 versus the Samsung Galaxy Tab 7.7. They both have their good features. The Motorola is more rugged, it's water resistant, and it has GSM world roaming capabilities. Whereas the Galaxy Tab 7.7 has that Super AMOLED Plus display. Now, like as I said, IPS is also pretty nice on the Motorola, but I think a lot of people really like that Super AMOLED saturation. This is the first Super AMOLED Plus tablet display. And the Samsung is faster, no way around it. That Samsung is still looking darn attractive given its much longer battery life. But again, the Motorola fights back with a little bit faster 4G LTE data speeds, and it also costs less money. It's $100 less as a retail purchase and $70 less on contract. So that's our comparison smackdown of two pretty nice tablets available on Verizon. Both kind of pricey, but hey, if you need that fast Verizon data anywhere and you want a tablet that is somewhat pocketable, you can't go wrong with either one. I'm Lisa from Mobile Tech Review. Don't forget to watch our video review of each of these tablets and read our full written review of each of these tablets.